everyone, it's Steve Irola. Thanks for joining me in my Drawing Zombies part 1. So we're going to be using Procreate, but realistically you could use probably any digital medium that you'd like to. I know one of the questions here is going to be what am I drawing with, what brushes, and I'm using a couple brushes out of Lane's Charcoal Master Pack. Not an affiliate or anything, I just really like his pack, so I'll leave a link to that in the description. And so I use a couple of his brushes, and then I have a couple of brushes that I use that come with Procreate. So I use probably just a few more of these, but honestly anything that's kind of like a rough pencil for the line work, and kind of something that has a little bit of a texture for any of the shading is preferable. So here I just kind of have the sketch and drawing portion done in as a time lapse. I actually didn't record it over my shoulder, but we'll be going into the shading, and I'll just talk a little bit about my process. With this particular drawing as well, Lane's Master Pack, Charcoal Pack, also comes with like 5, I think, paper textures. So this is actually one of the ones that comes from his pack as well. He also has some fantastic videos, so I definitely recommend checking out some of Lane's videos as well. I started out traditionally drawing on paper, mostly with graphite and charcoal, and so I just got into Procreate a few years ago, and I really love it. So I always try to get that look and feel as I draw. So in future videos, I'll go over a little bit more of the sketching and drawing process, but right now I thought, let's get kind of the drawing done, and then we'll head into the rest of it. So I pretty much have my darks in, my drawing done, and I'm really just going to start adding some of the values of light and dark. All right, so I generally do that under my drawing layers, typically on top of my rough. You can see my rough is there, so we'll go on top of that. I do use brushes that tend to have kind of a broken, or I don't want a solid line, especially when I'm going for that traditional look. So let's try this one. And I'm just going to choose kind of a dark brownish red color here, maybe somewhere around there. And don't want to go too heavy with it. I like to build it up a little bit. So I'm going to kind of get the darks around the sides a little bit here, just to kind of push those back. There'll be a little here, definitely down here a bit. Definitely want a little contrast under that chin, so the chin will come forward, so I want to darken that behind it a little bit. And then we're going to have the lights coming in the reference photo from kind of this direction. So this side of the face will be lit more. And I think to kind of push them back a little bit, I really want to kind of darken. And we're going to erase some of this. So I'm going to put it down, and then I'm going to come in and erase a little bit. But I just want to darken the tone around him a little bit. That's going to add a brighter contrast when I add the brights here to his face. And I'll probably have a little bit of reflected light here on the back too, which will contrast this, but this will help us fade things in the back, like here. Down here I'll probably just let all of this kind of fade together. That way our attention is really kind of here. You can kind of see that a little bit already just with adding these darks in a little bit here. And I'm going to knock these back a little bit. This is a little too strong, but which is fine because it's actually how I would likely do it on traditional, if I would putting some like vine charcoal or willow charcoal down, and man, it just spreads all over, and then half of it will come up, but you just dust it off. And some parts you touch, which it'll leave like a little mark in there, so it just kind of adds to that charm. And let's just kind of get a few spots in here while we're here. Again, I'm not going to get too detailed at this point. I just kind of want to stay where I know I'm going to have some shadows. So as this kind of wraps away from the light, because the light's a little bit forward, it won't be as bright behind it, and that's what kind of gives it that round feel. It has dimension. I'll probably have some of the stray white hairs that'll kind of come popping off here from the background. That'll make those pop out as well. As soon as we start adding those highlights, it should look really pretty cool. And then what I want to do is I'm going to get the eraser. And I have the artist crayon that I modified a little bit. So the artist crayon comes with Procreate. So I'm just going to kind of knock back some of this, and the unevenness, wow, that's a tongue twister, will help add to, see, I mean, how we got that little kind of odd spot. I mean, that happens when you're, if I was erasing. So I'm just going to erase this back a little bit, feather the edges a little bit. There we go. And I'm going to build on top of this too, but and sometimes I'll go back and forth. I'll, kind of do this as the base coat, and then I'll grab my brush again and come back in and begin to reiterate or to darken little areas, just slowly building up that value. You can see just by knocking back if I do a before and after of just that, just adding kind of these darker tones, even though they're pretty subtle, you'll see quite a difference there on how that makes it, and how your eye just kind of now focuses on his face, to where without it, the face is there, but with all this light around it, it's really competing for your eye. So I'm going to add a highlight layer, same spot under the drawing, but above the sketch, and it will be above the darks. So for now, I want a color that's lighter than this, the lightest color that I see, but not too bright, because I want to have a chance to add ones that are even lighter. So I'm going to press and hold to sample a color here. So that's about the brightest, or roughly what the bright is. So you can see we're about midway. We have a long way to go before we get to white. So I'm probably just going to choose somewhere up in here. That's brighter, but again, not overly bright. And then I'm going to use that same willow charcoal stick at this point. And again, that light is coming from here. So kind of the front side of his face would be anything there is what's going to receive the light the most. And it'll be, favor the top area here. So again, I'm just going to kind of generally put it here. And there's going to be areas that are going to end up highlight right now that we're going to end up putting some detailed shadows in, where it'll just kind of help show you where the the forms wrap around and all that stuff. But right now we're going to just kind of go very light and fairly large at this point, just to start indicating what are some of those brighter areas that that you see. And again, this is where looking at reference can really help, because if you're not familiar with how to interpret light yet, that you're not actually looking at, this really can help you just understand it, like where are some of those brighter areas that we want to hit. And again, I'm going with a very, very light hand at this point. I'm not really too heavy at all, just resting the pencil there on the So again, if I toggle it on and off, hopefully you can see that. See how it's subtle, but it's there, it's adding to it, and we're going to continue to build on top of that. And usually this is the extent that I will go to for the layers that are under, and then I begin to, when I start doing my final detailed passes of my lighter and darker values, I'll start working on top of the entire drawing at that point. And I mean, I could collapse it down, just merge all the layers, and sometimes I'll do that, but often I'll just leave it like this, because then I come in here and tweak some of the drawings and say, how does it look if I lowered this pencil a little bit, or it just gives options. And when you're working digitally, you might as well take advantage of the options that you have. All right, so with that, I'm going to go up, and I'm going to create a new layer. Now, I do at this point, sometimes I'll go in and I will start hitting some of my darks and kind of just the very subtle areas that I really want to push, because I sometimes want to figure out how far am I going to go down on that value scale. And so I might put in some very select darks and very select lights, and that way when I'm placing other lights and darks, you kind of have something to measure against. So one of the areas of focus is going to be this, this area of the face. So when somebody's looking at this, that's where I want them to look. So that's pretty much where I'm going to focus as I start going into the details here. All right, so let's work on some of these highlights. So I'm on a new layer now above everything. I'm going to go back to this. So did my sketch in the with the charcoal master pack, the general here. So here I'm going to go with pretty, not quite white, and again I'm probably going to make the layer slightly transparent again after, so it's going to drop the value again. But again, I really want to hit now some of those areas that I'm really seeing bright light. So this, I almost want to, this should be very limited. And again, I'm looking at the reference and kind of saying, what are those areas that are popping out? It's probably going to look a little weird. It's like, wow, that's going to be too bright, or something's going to look strange. It's going to make all the other ones, all the other current areas maybe look a little different, but that's the way it works. So, and you can see how bright that highlight is right now. And again, I just kind of want to start getting my top of my range here. So I probably won't go too much brighter than those. And there's a couple areas here. I'm going to knock this back a little bit because I'm not going to be as bright as that for these other areas. And there's just kind of these areas here that are, because it's a zombie, they're a bit kind of wet and gross looking, which is what gives it that look. So some of these I am doing just kind of scratches. It's literally just getting, I was going to say the pigment, but I guess there's no actual pigment here, but just getting something there that I can move around here in a few minutes. I'm also trying to go with, where I see the skin is folding downward, I'm trying to do kind of little pulls downward. I don't know if you can see that or not, but it's kind of pulling down, pulling down. If I want to see that this nose kind of wraps up, I'm using little pulling strokes like this. I know it's kind of hard to see when it's so small, but that's what I'm actually doing. I'm just slowly building it up. And I do want to shift that color around a little bit, or kind of smooth it out. So I'm going to grab here, smudge tool. Been messing around with the stucco one lately, which has been kind of cool. So again, I'm on the smudge mode here, about, 60, 70%. And then very, very lightly. And I'm treating it almost like I'm painting. Like I'm not just randomly smudging. I'm again, pulling in that direction where the stroke is. Let me go close in so you just kind of see. And I'm just kind of, near where the end, where it ends, I might just do a very light brush, very lightly moving my pencil over it. Just kind of working it in there. And as I begin to put white in the areas that I've already done, because I haven't actually, removed anything, I've just smudged them around a little bit, that'll help start giving it more and more detail. And then here, it's going to get darker as this goes back into this cheek area, so I'm going to just kind of smudge that out as well. And hopefully you can see here it's kind of starting to give shape to that, to this lip. Then as it's getting away from the light, again, we're kind of backing it off there. I'm starting to think about these little shapes. So when I was first doing this, I was looking at this as kind of a big shape. Now I'm starting to look at this as like, oh, look at this little guy here and this little fold. And I'm starting to give those their own little highlight, which just begins to add this level of detail that wasn't there before. Just soften those highlights that I did earlier. They're still there, but it's going to create a softer one. I'm going to come back in and we're going to do it again. We're going to put it on top of it. That'll make them brighter again. We're going to come in here too and push the darks a little bit now too. So if you recall earlier, I had mentioned we need to start putting some lights in. That's what we're doing. But we do need to come in here and start working our darks. And again, that'll really start to give this some dimension. Okay. Definitely about ready to start getting even kind of on a second level of details. But I do want to do a little bit of a pass of the darks again. Probably just do on this layer. I like doing it on the same layers as details because then I can kind of blend them together a little bit as well. So that can often help. So even with that little bit of the pass, if you look kind of where we've, where we were and where we are now, you'll kind of see the difference there where it's really starting to add some of that dimension in as we start to build it up. So next we'll kind of do the same thing but with the darks. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and just do it on this layer as well. I am going to make it the layer that we've been working on. I am going to make it a little bit transparent. That way it's again, you can see through it just a little bit and continue to build up that lighter and darker value. But I'll usually just set it a little bit more transparent. Okay. So I do want to push some of the darks, like the dark areas of the eye and stuff like that. So I'm going to go ahead and select, see how dark that is. So it's pretty dark. Could definitely go a little darker. And if I do that a really deep dark, I want to be kind of selective with it. I'm going to make sure I'm going to stay a little bit warmer on it. We can use the general. Probably make it a little bit tighter. And let's see here. So I'll zoom in a little bit too, so hopefully you can kind of see it a little bit better what I'm doing here, because it's going to be fairly subtle, but it will add to it. So I don't even know if that difference picks up for you. It is very subtle. It'll be probably a little bit more apparent as we begin to kind of pull out here and start to give some of these kind of creases just where the light's having a difficult time getting into. Really trying to emphasize that that lid is going around into the back there. And here I'm just kind of randomly just putting bits of hints of where some information might be, or there might be something that's casting a shadow there. Maybe I'll just kind of smooth it out a little bit just so it's not quite apparent what's going on there. And we can leave a little bit up to the imagination for the viewer. I'm working a little bit larger than I usually would, but I want to make sure that you're seeing some of the strokes, because I know sometimes it doesn't show up well on the camera. All right, I'm going to go back down to this background layer now. And I think this was about the color I did, so I'm going to go maybe just a tad darker. Let's go back to the, actually let's try something out here with the burnt tree. So this burnt tree brush, I believe also comes in Procreate. I don't recall, it's probably in the painting one. I've pulled some of my common ones that I use into my own little folder. I made copies of them. That way if I want to modify the brushes, I don't have to, change the original ones, and I can just, or use both. So this one, I think you got to be a little careful on, but see, it adds kind of this. In fact, I think I'm going to do that on its own layer, just so I can keep this one the way it is, and then I might merge them after. Okay. Let's do that again. So again, this adds just kind of that irregularity. I'm going to come here and smudge some of this as well, and probably erase a lot of it. But this just kind of creates, some variety again on the canvas, a little bit of texture, and just lends kind of to that traditional look. All right, I won't do too much there, and then I'll probably come here with the smudge, and then let's just hit that a little bit here and there. And so now when we start coming in with our larger highlights, it'll really start popping out as we're starting to get a little stronger on the range. I'm going to knock this down just a tad bit. I don't want it too dark. Yeah, that's pretty good. All right, right around there. And then I'm just going to merge those two together. So they're now one. There we go. I'll pop that initial highlight up a little bit more. There we go. Okay, so I think we can just continue working here on this. Well, you know what? I want to show you another kind of technique that I use sometimes, especially when I start hitting the bright highlights, because I'm so conservative a lot of times and it builds up. So sometimes what I'll do is I'll come up here and I'll set a layer, its own layer, and I'll set it to add. So add really just like makes the colors, the values add together, and it gets bright really, really fast. So I even take it down initially, and I'll end up taking it a lot lower than even this, likely after I'm done drawing. But I'm going to go ahead and get, let's make sure we stay kind of more in the yellow orangish area, and something maybe like that. Okay, and then I'm going to go back to the charcoal or the general. All right, so now I'm going to start hitting some of these highlights just like I'm almost doing it and saying, okay, I want to do this way more than I think I'm going to need. Like I'm going to overdo it and then kind of take away. And usually when I force myself to do that, it really makes me put the highlights in almost the way they should be. So I'm thinking where this light is getting hit on it. You know, where is it really going to hit this cheek? And then again, I'm going to take this little smudge just carefully as it starts to, let me zoom in a little bit there. So as I know it starts to kind of fade off here and won't get hit, I'm just going to kind of smudge that a little bit there and there like that. Just kind of soften it out, so as it's coming up and starting to round that nose, I'm going to just soften. And same thing now, I'm kind of pulling downward this way, just slightly. So it pulls it down. This one I want to kind of pull it in a C shape this way. Pull this piece up, this piece down, kind of hit the back of it here as I think of how this piece just kind of turns around. And you're essentially doing that for each piece of this. You're just looking at this little individual segment. Now that we're kind of in the detailed phase, again, I'm working a bit closer than I usually would, but I want to make sure you guys can see. So you can see even though I'm smudging this, it's still leaving these lines. I mean, you can still see the lines here, so that adds to it. Pull out a few of the highlights here just to show there's some texture going on in the skin. I want it soft. See, that was an accident, but I'm going to leave that one. I won't leave it, but I'll correct it through kind of erasing. I'm not going to correct it through an undo, just to show you can. There's another one. So now maybe I take that and go, yeah, I don't care for that too much. What happens if I, smudge it around a little bit? I can start to knock that down. Looks all right. If I want to erase it just a little bit, let me start pulling it back. There we go. And maybe I come in and just, pull a bit more back in there. And now it looks like there's kind of this extra brighter area of detail. Yeah, I've been kind of going through The Walking Dead here. First time going through. I think they're just releasing season maybe 11, I think. I am not on season 11. I am on season, I think I'm halfway through season 3. But that was kind of the inspiration to start doing these zombies. Got a couple other that I want to try. This is going to be the most detailed one, and the other ones I want to do on this page are just going to be a little bit more, a lot rougher. But I thought I would render this one out as part of the kind of testing the recording and see how that goes and all that fun stuff. I was kind of, I know I kind of decided to do that after I started drawing this and didn't think about recording at the time the actual drawing of it. So maybe that's the part I'll show on the other pieces of this, is I just kind of, how did I get to this point on this one? And then I'm not going to render those out to this depth. So again, I'm coming in here, I'm just kind of softening those areas back a little bit, especially here off to the side where we're kind of losing our focus on it, and I'll leave the ones kind of that are in here. Don't want to completely destroy the brush stroke though. I'd like it to stay. Alright, now here I'll probably back it off just a tad more. And so now you can see this layer's contribution. If I hide it and, hide it and show it. So you can see it's really starting to pop now out the different forms. And then one last thing I wanted to do here was just take a soft brush, still on this add layer. And then hopefully this can be seen now. It's very, very subtle. Just going to kind of brush the eye a little bit to hint that it's getting, there's a little bit of shine on it there. This one's probably just a tad too much. There we go. And then let's get this little HB pencil. Let's go super white. Let's really hit that highlight now. I want to pull a little bit out of this one too. There we go. Still leave that little bit of the shadow that's being cast from the eyelid. All right. I want this. I just want it to be on the eye. There we go. That kind of gives them that kind of glossy eyes a little bit there. Okay, so we'll just almost bring it home here and start just stylizing the rest of it, and we're almost there on this one. I think what we'll do is we'll add in a little bit of color. So often for color, when I like starting in black and white, whether I don't always do it, but usually works as a base, so I can just kind of focus on the values, light and dark, and then start bringing color into the mix. So I'll show you kind of a way to, if you're not familiar with it, it's kind of a neat way to do it. You can create a layer and set it to color, which is right here. And then I'm going to grab, maybe I'll do this chalk brush. I modified a chalk brush. It's kind of a soft brush, but it has a little bit of a texture to it. And let's take kind of like a reddish, orangish, yeah, maybe around here. I'm just literally going to play around with a little bit of color here, and oftentimes when I work in color, I feel like I bounce around a lot, and I like try this color and that color, and it just kind of like eventually I get there, but I add some of the red in around the eyes a little bit. I don't want it to look, I'm probably going to back it off a bit, because maybe go, not go too colorful, because we don't want, they're a zombie, they don't have much blood in their veins anymore. This is actually pretty warm, but I think, well, we'll see. Can always come in here and go a different direction, which is what I like. I almost want to go, it's kind of like an orangey yellowish color. It's pretty saturated. Let's see what this looks like. And I may end up backing this out into some layers too, or to layer up the effect. We'll see. Might just work on this one layer. And doing it this way is kind of cool because you can see I'm coloring over it, but it's not affecting how dark or light something is. So it's very nice to kind of preserve the work that you already did, opposed to adding something that's either too light or too dark, and you got to go in there and kind of correct it. Can we grab a little green here? And it's almost like a yellowish green. I don't want to make it too. I want to go very subtle with this. I'll probably come back in over it. So you can just kind of playing, just varying the colors up a little bit to see, do I like it, do I not like it? And again, it's all salt and pepper to taste, so it's really whatever you like. That's kind of interesting. I'll probably, well, I don't know. I might back it down just a little, which again, having on its own layer is nice because you can try that and say, did I put too much color? Not enough color? In the event of not enough, sometimes you can just duplicate the layer and it literally will double, you know, what was on there, and then you can kind of adjust one or the other to get the look that you're going for, which is nice again, so you save time. I'm sure you could completely erase it and then try it again and then erase it and try it again, but you know, unless you're into self-torture, why would you do that? Use the tools we got. Make your life simpler. This is drawing's complicated enough and takes a long time. So being able to say, you know, speed something up like that is good, because not all areas of the process can be sped up. Speed it up, that means you can go create more. Okay, now there's a little bit of blue, kind of in like a jean jacket type thing. So I just want this not even too noticeable. That's way too, well, yeah, I'm going to back that down a little bit. So you can see a little bit goes a long way there. I'm just going to kind of back it down a little so it's still there, but and that kind of contrasts against this. I think I'll add a little bit of that blue to the eyes too. Kind of gives them that glazed over look. So let's see what we did here. Color, no color. So I'm going to back that down just a tad, so it's still there, but just so it's not quite so strong. And then now that we've kind of got this color base down, now it's just kind of one more last pass on any, you know, little highlights and shadows, and there might be some other areas where we want to kind of push the color, but I purposely was just trying to keep it, you know, I didn't want to go too saturated with color. A lot of times I won't do that. There's some that I absolutely do, different style, but for this, where it's more, I'm just trying to keep it more like a drawing, and almost the color's not even too noticeable, but if you look, there's definitely color there. So just a little bit more fine details, and this one's going to be done. All right, so here we are. So I'm going to create a layer on top here. I'm going to try something. I'm going to do, let's go to an overlay mode. So overlay is going to take lighter colors that we put on this layer and make them lighter, and it's going to make darkers darker. And I know it does some probably other fun stuff too with how it treats the color, but I don't know how to explain that or exactly how it works, so I'm not going to try at this point. Maybe I'll learn that part a little bit better than tell you the actual mechanics of it. But right now I'm just going to choose kind of a darker color. I think I'm gonna try going with a cooler color here and see what that does. And I think, yeah, I want to keep it on the chalk brush, fairly small. And then I don't want a lot at all here. I just want something kind of soft. Yeah, see, it's not, I think I actually want to lighten that a little bit in there. So if I go with like a brighter blue, let's see what that'll do for us. If I can just start to pull some reflected light in on this side of the face. Kind of keeping it towards the top. It's very subtle. You probably will see it when I turn it on or off. Well, you can kind of see that. I did that a little strong because I was trying to make it show up. But I'm going to try to use this, and I'll just back the layer off, kind of like I did earlier with that, the add layer. And I am picking, again, and it's probably hard to see, but I am picking my pencil up occasionally. I'm not just, dragging it across, putting it down in one spot and then dragging it across. I am lifting it. This one I am being a little bit more broad because I am trying to hit, like I said, I'm gonna end up backing this off a little bit here, but I'm trying to emphasize the light, the color, a little bit more yellow coming from this top area. And then, as I said, I'm gonna end up backing it down quite a bit, so it'll be very subtle. So, again, I'm thinking of this fold of skin, and the highlight would be kind of up here. So I'm not just randomly putting the colors in. I am trying to consider where, what would be catching light. I'm almost like trying to hold the pencil away from the screen. That's how soft I'm letting it hit. It's like I'm trying to brush the ever so slight amount that I can. So now I'll probably come down and just find a good spot for that. Yeah. So hopefully that's showing up, but it just kind of warms up where that sun is hitting it. And again, I might take a deeper blue here and just see if I can take just some of these deeper shadow areas and just kind of push those in. Again, just letting the pencil hit here and there, just creating little marks, and it looks like it adds some detailed texture in there and just helps lend to some of the chaos that's happening in there that'll be interpreted as detail as we kind of back out and look at that. So just trying to tuck that eye back in there just a little bit. So I'm just building up. So I want to make it look like it's kind of coming out from this eye is wrapping, and it's not quite. It's getting closer. There we go. So now, so now some little details. I just want to make sure, you know, I might come down in here and leave some pencil strokes. Let me grab a larger, again, I've just been kind of playing with these lately, so I don't know if I'll like them or not. And that's what a lot of these sketching practices are. It's literally about just kind of playing and seeing what works and what doesn't work and just kind of experimenting. And it's really cool to be able to do that digitally because it's kind of scary sometimes if you're trying to do it, you know, as a regular or on a traditional medium. Sorry, I'm kind of evaluating what I want to do here. So this is, yeah, this is pretty close. I don't know that I really want to take it too much further. I think I'm going to go very quickly back down to my add layer and just kind of soften up some of this, go use that chalk brush and just kind of give it a little extra here. You're just making it uniform. The lighting across it not so just rough, I guess. But yet, you know, like that's it's very strong. I'm trying to keep it from hitting it too hard, actually. But I'm just thinking about those shapes and, you know, where shadows might be obstructing the light from hitting. That way it kind of gives this feeling of it being more outdoors and lending itself to the structure of the face itself. All right, so I think lastly, I'm just going to put I want to do one more add layer. This is going to have very little on it, but I just want to get just a couple really bright highlights. And the only reason why I didn't put it on the other one is the other one I have knocked back a little bit, and I might keep this one. It's probably won't be quite at full strength, but it does allow me to keep it a little bit separate. And this is just going to be super subtle in some of these things here. Just hitting areas that might be a little wet or moist, which is not too much on this guy because he's starting to dry out. But I would just want to hint at some of the detail in here that the, you know, light might be catching. So right now I have a very thin brush on. I'm just trying to connect parts of the skin. I'm not going to do too much of this just because I don't want to spend too much time. I could just sit here and you could do it forever. And I don't want to spend too much time on this one. I don't need to. It's not for any type of project. It's just for some practice and selected because I'm currently watching The Walking Dead. And lastly, I'm just going to put a layer on top. And it's funny because sometimes I'll collapse these layers down after. I mean, probably about that. In fact, I think we'll do that now. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my normal layers, and anything that's a normal layer you can collapse down. And you can still maintain that highlights, and so these will all look correct since you merged the normal layers. And then all I'm going to do here this is just cosmetics for the very last. I'm just going to put some more brush strokes in just to make it look a little bit more painterly. And again, I might back those down a little bit. Probably go back to the good old general brush. So this is just kind of, let's go with like a deeper. So this is just to add some kind of random brush strokes. This is what kind of makes it look like, oh, I just quickly drew this. It's almost like backing up, you know, in the process. But so I might choose to have maybe say some, well, it's a little thick, just some strokes here. And I'll probably come in and I'm going to erase some of these, but it's almost like I'm sketching again over my drawing that I did, and then I might come in here and just kind of, and this is just playtime in here to figure out, because I'm on a top layer, I can do this without fear of destroying anything that I've already created, and so it really is just some experimentation to say what happens when I kind of put, this these brush strokes in here and just trying different colors and different things to see how it works. That's too strong. Back that off a little bit over here. Just want to hint at the neck wrapping. So again, you can kind of use parts of the drawing that may have been lost or just weren't there to begin with, just to loosely help make sure that the right, story is being told of what's happening here. I can go in here too, and just if something looks like it needs a little bit of a emphasis to, because it was lost in whatever else that I was doing, now's the time to do it. Home stretch. And again, you're probably not, let me see if I can work a little bit bigger there, you're probably not seeing a lot of this because it's very subtle. I'm just touching areas that are already there, already dark. Make sure this does look like a shadow coming over the eye. So this is just really kind of correcting some of those details. And like I said, just having fun and kind of, adding some strokes in there that individuals will be able to see and look at. And all right, I think we're about there. See if I can just really kind of push some of these a little bit here to, again, just add those. What? I didn't plan these strokes. I just put these in real quick. Look at that. All right. Well, I think we're going to call that guy about complete. And in the next video, I'm going to work on a few zombie characters that we'll just put somewhere on this page as just some practice. And I'm going to actually show the process of kind of the drawing stages of that from this type of view. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it helped a little bit. Just kind of going through my process and showing you how I tackle some of these items. And if you'd like to see future ones, just be sure to hit that like and subscribe button, and it should come across your feed when I post a new one. So thanks for sticking around, and we'll see you in the next video.